Welcome, everyone, to today's show. I am Deanna Swope. I am the host of this show, Sign Your Truth. So I am thrilled to invite today's panelist. We have Brianna, who has been working on our appearances. Let me give you the description. I'm sorry. I'm wearing long locks, um, a yellowish gold shirt. I'm sitting behind a white background with a lamp on the side that is a squared shape. I'm also have a gold ring on my left hand, as well as an iPhone, an iWatch on my phones on my wrist. So this is season two, and I want to thank all of you for joining us for season one, the success that we had. We want to continue with the success that we have been dealing with, and let's start with our panelists. I'm really happy that we often find ourselves overlooked in our own work. We'll notice that the values of our colleagues or our higher ups seem to get rewarded, whereas the work that we do is overlooked. So even when we come up with ideas that might be perfect and we're hearing from our other colleagues, we may feel that we notice from our panelists that we'll realize that a lot of that feeling is the same. So we want to talk about our raw experiences, the trauma that we're experiencing, how it touches each and every one of us. So I'm going to go ahead and let you know that we have interpreters as well as captioners. So please feel free to throw in your questions, your comments. We are Facebook Live. I'd love to hear from you. So let's go ahead and start with our first panelist, Leanne.
Hello, my name is Leanne Valentine, and this is my sign name on my left shoulder. And I'll give you a visual description. I have on braids and a light purplish shirt, and I also have darker purple braids. Um, and I am sitting in a chair, and I have a white wall background, and I have some kind of green crochet throw covering part of the chair. And I have a few knickknacks to my left and right behind me on a shelf, as well as a frame of some awards. And I can't really find a place to hang it in my apartment, so it's behind me. And also, I have on glasses that are framed here. And I have several roles. I am married, I have teenagers. I also am a teacher at NTID, RIT, and I'm also the director of diversity and wellness. And I have a degree as well. And I also am part of a deaf and hard of hearing club there. It's nice to see and meet all of you.
Beautiful. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much. And now we will have Selah. Can you come on board? Hello, everyone. My name is Selah Davison. Well, right now, my description is I'm wearing a brown shirt. It looks like a leaf on the front. My hair is curly, black on one end and brown near the bottom. I am wearing a ring on both of my fourth fingers. My background is simple and it's kind of blurred, so you can't really see it. This is Deanna. That's awesome. Thank you so much. And now we will hear from Taja.
Hey everyone, my name is Taja. It's my sign name. Right now I am wearing a black jacket and a black shirt. My background is blurry, but it's just white in the background has just like a picture. hanging, like on the wall. And that's it.
This is Deanna. Awesome. Last but definitely not least, Megan.
Great. Hello, everyone. My name. Okay, great. Okay, hello. My name is Megan, Megan Erasmus. Pronouns are she, her, and I am wearing black and white. I have a white background on a wall, and that is for easy visual consumption. All right, thanks.
This is Deanna. Beautiful. Beautiful. So let's get going. We are going to start with our first question. Can you share some personal experiences or examples of being passed over in your workplace? Any experiences that you've had with that?
I can start.
Leanne, go ahead.
Okay, so my first experience, quite ironically, was in the past, but before becoming a therapist, before all of that professional work, it was actually more as a formal chef. And I had a lot of skills to be very successful as a chef, actually. And so my role at the time, was more like, like kind of like Hell's Kitchen, kind of think of that dynamic. Okay. So I was in that role and trying to move upwards and forwards. And I was in the position of head chef. Okay. So right under the head chef as a sous chef, so you can kind of move up, like, doing the chopping and kind of work your way up to sous chef. And that's what I was doing. And it's a lot of rigorous work to do that. So what happened during that experience is, I was really looking forward to hopefully being promoted to head chef in the future. I had to work my way up to the top, and the head chef was on their way out. Now, keep in mind, I'm a Black woman, and the other individual was a white woman. Okay. Now her skills were not quite up to par. Okay. It was a little sloppy with some of the work she would do, not really watching the food preparation and that kind of thing. And, so one time we were cooking for different people, and we don't want people to get sick, of course. You don't want anybody to get sick or anything like that. So we have to be very, very careful in our work. And so I kept reminding her to be a bit more careful and intentional with what she was doing. Now, the head chef decided to choose her as the head chef instead of me, despite all of the things that kept happening in the kitchen because of her. And I'm just kind of looking to see exactly why that happened. There was no explanation, but I was quite deflated because of this. I mean, really, it really impacted my self-esteem and all of the work and effort that I put into everything that I was doing, and how hard I had worked to get to the position that I was in, so that I could earn the position of head chef. And I had done so much to be passed over so that she could be chosen as head chef. I mean, that meant that people looked up to her and her work. And I was just passed over for that position, and my work and my effort was passed over and overlooked. And I mean, it was really a hard experience to digest, and just I meeting with the head chef and trying to figure out exactly what the explanation was. And it's just like, because they could, that was it. And so in hindsight, I look back now, and it's just like, okay, yeah, I think that had to do with racism. Like, quite frankly, it had to be that, and it wasn't based on skill at all, because I was quite skilled and more skilled than that individual. Or perhaps, um, it had to do with something else. But again, the head chef was a man. So, and then, he was tall. This was a shorter woman, and he thought she was prettier. I have no idea exactly, to this day, exactly what that is. But I look back now and I see that. But then guess what happened? End up being fired. So, my point is made, but that is one of my first experiences being passed over.
This is Deanna. I want to add to that because the other thing I wanted to add is in terms of your experience. Thank you so much, Leanne, for adding that in terms of your experience. Who else? Selah, I see your hand. This is Selah. So I had a new job was thinking I'm going to be moving up to the top position. It was a white supervisor. And typically, I learned that they were providing monthly racism meetings with the staff. So I figured I'd join because it seemed like that would be appropriate, to be involved and kind of see what's going on. And they had this group, and I'm just like, "Ooh, I'm not quite sure if this is what I'm supposed to be a part of." But at the time of the meeting, I felt like they were targeting um, the supervisor that was white, and the not white or the Jewish were identified as race, and everybody would look to that. And I didn't quite understand exactly what that meant, whether it was an insult. I didn't know. I was naive to that at the time. But then later on, they talked about identities and races and all of those things. And it was a very clear explanation, but still, I didn't quite get it. But I figured it must be okay because they're talking about it. And again, this is a white supervisor. And there was no other Black person that had ever been in that job. And when I looked at them when they said that, I said, "Really?" And it's like, "Yeah, like no Black person ever been in this job." So it was just like, wow. I said I disagree. I don't think that means a Black person can't do the job. I think I would be able to do that as well. So anyway, they allowed all of the white staff to just, let that person keep their job and stay in the group. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, that doesn't seem like if it's right. It doesn't look like if they can really do their work, they're not trustworthy, all of those things. But they were still supporting them because they were white and they were Jewish. So that experience made me feel like I really, I had worked as a social worker, I'd worked as a counselor, all of those things, almost 16 years. So for them to have to deal with that, I felt like if, it wasn't, I couldn't I had a chance to run the job the way I run it, the way I wanted, just based on race and just the management style and being able to talk with people. I felt like I wouldn't be in safe space. So even in the meetings, I didn't want to go, focusing on the job. They told us you have to go. And even going into the office, like you really couldn't feel like if you were supported. So again, they were telling us, no, you have to go to this meeting. So being forced to attend these racial trainings, I just felt like, this is not a safe space for me at all. This is Deanna. Wow, I cannot imagine what that would do. So, how did that impact you mentally, having to deal with that? Having to experience that, being forced to leave your emotions out of situation so that other people can be comfortable, and get that pat on the back, let's say, and you're still in a work environment. Wow. So, how can we just encourage that, that kind of narrative instead of focusing on other things, focusing on your values, your trauma, your emotion, your safety? So it's important that we bring that up. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. This is Selah. I wanted to emphasize one more thing. People were saying that, they're in their job, everybody has their own job, and, everyone needs to deal with their emotions, but you still have to make choices. You know, you still have to decide what you want for yourself, and no one can make the decision for you. It's about boundaries. And I was telling them, like, your decision is yours, but that's not mine. And I have to care for my own mental health. I have to care for my own needs. And it didn't seem like if they were hearing me at all. You can never allow someone else to decide for you what's best for you. And if you want someone to be a part of something, they have to be willing. This is Deanna. I completely agree. I completely agree. You know, so that is, let me see, Megan or Taja, do you want to chime in? And now,
So, my experience, I've kind of learned how things worked in the workplace a long time ago when I was a teen. My first memories of just that experience. I had moved to a new town that was mostly a white town. And me and my friend, we were looking for jobs. You know, you become a teen and you want that first job. So we're looking for jobs. And me and her were both applying for the same job, both no experience, same age, same everything. I'm filling out my application. I look over and I notice she's scratching out things on her application. Um, she gets hired for the job. I don't. I finally get another job, and about a month later, I realize all of my white coworkers are getting paid more than me. And there was really no reason at all for that to be happening. Now, at this time, I'm 15 years old experiencing this. And I remember growing up just hearing my dad just talk about how he had to work twice as hard just to be overlooked for promotions. And just like my dad is a very skilled electrician, has his master's degree, all of that. And he is constantly telling me stories about how growing up or experiencing his workplace, he was constantly being passed over for people who maybe is the son or the nephew of the person who owns the place. So just learning that very early, it just really stuck with me. And then finally entering my professional job and teaching, just being a young Black woman whose ideas are just constantly turned down or ignored, simply because I was a young Black woman. Um, and yeah, so that has just been my experience.
This is Deanna. Wow. Thank you, Taja. Especially at 15. How do you deal with that rejection? Imagine the impact in that moment. Yeah, so we're going to talk more about that. We've got another question coming up. Very last but not least, Megan.
This is Meg here, and thank you all for sharing those experiences. Now, for me, as far as my journey goes, most of my experiences were hitting a glass ceiling when it comes to being promoted or upward mobility in my jobs. You know, I was motivated and ready to excel, accept a larger role and responsibilities, and move on from my position. And I was passed over, even though I had the same kind of experience, or I might have the same degree, had the same background, the same schooling, educational history, everything being the exact same. But it started off, a lot earlier than that, meaning that I had more experience than the other person, but they were still being promoted. And, also that something happened. Okay, anyway, and it's just like they were still promoted and they were still getting new roles, new positions and for a new program or new department. And then finally okay, you're back. All right. So finally being promoted to a supervisory role, I was super excited. And, being a part of that team and the leadership team, all of them were, of course, white. I am Latina. And so, at the time, with the role, I had a task that was similar to everybody else, similar task, roles, and responsibilities, the same as other people on the team, with administration, filling out reports, again, the same role. But with my role, I had a towel coordinator as a supervisor, not director position, but yet we were still in the same position, but the pay was still different. I'm just like, okay, this is interesting. What's happening? That's when I start to realize, having the gift of giving someone that towel and, maybe they didn't feel like it was a big deal or anything like that. But no, it is giving them that title. Again, that title is important. You need that title. I needed that director title in order for upward mobility to happen, but I wasn't given that title the same as everyone else on the team. And so when it came to networking events and doing different things like that, I still needed that title. And so I wanted to speak to someone higher up. That's what someone said to me. And it's like, I am higher up. I am on the leadership team, but it was still demoralizing and having less self-esteem, not being able to have that title the same as other people, the same visibility. It still gave them a different status. And so that, I'm working with that company and having that title is important. The gift of that title, the gift of the title. I'm just emphasizing that again, showing that you're at the top level, you're at leadership, you can take the next step, you can do all of that. You have the chance for upward mobility. And that is my journey when it comes to being passed over in the workplace, when it comes to upward mobility.
This is Deanna. Wow. Thank you for all sharing that, Leanne. All of you, it made me think of my own experiences starting to work back after I had gone over 5 years. I'd finally gone back to work. 1 year, a former colleague of mine let me know that they were leaving and I should apply as a caseworker. And I thought, okay, great. Um, kids are old enough to do that. And they were going to be in addiction and drug treatment. So I went ahead and applied. And I thought, oh, wow. Little did I know, some guy comes over from California and applies for the same position. And I'm thinking, okay, all right. So we're going along. And then we're interviewing both of us on the same day, but his was going a little bit longer. So I'm thinking, okay, no, come on, Deanna, girl, you be positive. Don't worry about this. You got this. And when it came time for my interview, I felt like I lost it. I wasn't going to get the job. I just knew it, you know? But I tried to go through. I tried to push through, thinking this is a worthy position. This is an important place. Good work is being done here. You never know. Sure enough, they gave it to him and they hired me under him. Why? Because he could speak. So here am I thinking, but we'll work with interpreters, don't we? Oh, but they don't want to pay for interpreters to come in and they won't have to do all of that. Oh, oh, okay. I see how it's going on. So yeah, that's where I found out. Right there, the team, the hassle of having to deal with an interpreter was not something they wanted to be about. So the funny thing is that he could speak. Okay, that's fine. So he's speaking and he's using his voice, and everyone's going, okay. So that set the tone going forward. But I had to stand my ground and let them know, that that was an uncomfortable situation. Yeah, but I'm not going to let it define who I am. And I'm not going to force myself to match with the way he's doing the work. So at the end, it was a lot of frustration that was going on his part, but that's what you get. But it did impact me mentally, in terms of my skill and my future. I thought it was a little bit of a breakthrough for me. So I want to know, how has those experiences impact you mentally? Leanne.
So I'm going to start with that because after that experience that I shared with you all, it really made me doubt myself. I felt a lot of self-doubt. I felt like I had failed in some kind of way, like I did something wrong, and that's the reason I wasn't promoted to head chef. I felt a lot of self-doubt. And I started to withdraw socially, started to feel depressed to the point where I just kind of was done with the world. You know what I mean? I just wanted to stay home, inside, stay with my two children, be with them. And then, for like school and stuff like that, I decided, okay, I'll go to school. And then I, wanted to graduate. And that's kind of how I got to where I was now. But at that time, again, that experience really made me I really had to find who my people were. I had to figure out, who are my people. And I started to really search and search. And it took quite some time on that journey, to the point where I was really, really ready to give up until I got into NTID. And once I got into NTID, I knew I found my people. I found my people. Most of the people were white. Yes, I know that, but they understood my experience. They were understanding and empathetic of that and had some of that shared experience as well. And it was really important, that experience and that awareness and to stand on what I know and accept it with grace, or forgiveness or whatever had happened. So people at NTID, there wasn't like a vengeance attitude, but we had to choose to be, graceful and aware of and humble. And people were doing that there. And that's how I knew I found my people. And that's how I got through that. And so that's where I am today. And, and I'm not going back to where I was. So again, my mentality at the time, I was really like really hard on myself. I was in a dark place because of that experience. And I can't tell you how many times I really had suicidal thoughts. I really did. A lot of suicidal thoughts, but I was really, confused, but I know where I am now. I had I know how I can do it, break through, get through. I know I can do it. Yes.
Yes.
Snap several.
This is Deanna. That's the reason how, you know, never knowing how that person really gets impacted mentally, the power that people have to impact our thought process, our decision making, they never get held accountable, you know, for the work that has to be done as a result of that. I ever wonder if we are able to actually confront them and say, why didn't you choose me? Wanting them to hear, wanting to hear what they think about us. Are we afraid to approach them that way? Will it cause even more uh, doubt in ourselves? But you're still here with us, right? You showed that you're stronger than what they thought you were. So I really thank you for sharing that. And if audience, if you're relating with anything that's happening that we're talking about here on the panel, please go ahead and put it in the comments. Zoom audience, if there's anything that you want to share, definitely go on and put that out. We do have interpreters here that will work towards making your information accessible. So yeah, anything more to add? This is Selah. Go ahead. This is Selah. Just talking about my experience. When I was thinking, when this was happening, I really had to pinch myself to be like, is this really happening? Am I awake right now? Even the supervisor's comments on what was happening in the work where Black people don't work. And I'm going, what? This cannot be right. And having them look at me and feeling powerless, like thinking, what did you hire me for then? If you have these opinions about me, there could have been other people that could have taken this position. And how does that make me look? So it was really hard, you know, trying to understand and realize and then learn what was happening. Both of them had knowledge and they were admitting to learn about another culture, the other two, but then we were looking up to this other coworker and it was hard. I don't know if I can help that make sense, but it was feeling as if it was something I had to put in the back of my head, like going, okay, you know, how am I going to deal with this? What am I going to do with this information? You know, are they not educated about people of color? Is it hearing against Black people, hearing against deaf? I mean, it was so much going on. And I felt like an imposter, you know? I had like imposter syndrome, like I shouldn't be a social worker. Like I really felt like I was losing my mind. And I would come home and I'd isolate myself. And I couldn't think to apply for a new job, but I was thinking, this is important. This is me. And I was in that interview, even though I'd interviewed them and thinking, and had gone through all of the questions, what are problems that may have shown up, thinking as a deaf person, how I would handle that. And when I got officially hired, the next person, and they didn't hire me, the supervisor again being white and hearing, was very supportive and told me, "Oh, don't worry about it. You're good." So I'm thinking, am I not a good match? Am I not the one that could work in this team? And the chief officer was fantastic. Um, Working with people of color, they were just awesome. But yet, I just wasn't happy. It was just hard. And the funny thing is that we would joke around, talk about experiences and stuff like that. But I still had to find my identity in the intersectionality, just figure out who I am. And just, yeah, that was deep. This is Deanna. Many people find it hard to infuse themselves where the white culture is the dominant culture, being comfortable with where we are in our brown skin when we have white supremacy being a part of where we are, where we live. And that imposter syndrome is what happens. It's a part of thinking, speaking, signing, writing, where it's always in the white mindset. And we're forced to accept that. And we can't show our own culture. Like, you know how we do, right? We'd be judged harshly, more harshly than they would with the mainstream, in the mainstream culture. Whereas before, we had to hide who we really were. I remember a few years ago, after that job situation, I was burnt out. I was like, listen, people, you know what? Forget this. This is too much work. This is impacting my mental health. I ain't trying to do this. So, I should not have to feel threatened to show who I am at the workplace or anywhere, period. So I get that. I totally get that. It's really tough on our mental health. You should be able to enjoy without it being work. And then when you come home, again, having that freedom to work and do what you love. You know what I mean? Thank you, Selah. Anyone else want to add some more? Any other? Taja, Meg, want to add a little bit more? Go ahead, Meg.
Okay, so just echoing everything that everyone shared. Yes, it really resonated with me, your comments and your experiences on your journey of just having self-doubt and doubting your self-worth and your capability. And because of how somebody else sees your worth or the lack thereof, I definitely understand that for sure. So I'm probably just going to repeat some of what you all already emphasized. But again, when you join that organization, company, or agency, it's just really important for me to trust that the trust that what's been given to me, that feedback, that kind of, if you're not good enough or like some kind of self demoralizing things, it's just like, do I trust myself or do I trust the company or agency who hired me for this job? And so in the beginning, I started to take that to heart, the feedback I got from that organization or agency or company, and how I'm showing up to work. It's like, do I trust them or do I have confidence in what they're saying about me or myself? And so it's like I had to set a boundary in order to make sure that um, I am making sure there's reciprocity. So at work, I'm making sure there's reciprocity when it comes to my self worth, but the same with my friendships and other relationships as well. And just looking that I'm coming from a position where I have boundaries of self love, confidence, and my own self worth. And sometimes I have to, walk away from whatever that situation is because it will be the cost of me, and that's not worth it. And so that's just something that I have to be aware of. And it's an ongoing thing of not losing myself or going and continuing into a dark place at the cost of myself or losing myself. So, yeah. And that's just something that I know we can feel that way about.
This is Deanna. Beautiful story. I agree with where you are in terms of feeling if you're in the right place, and what's the point of staying to be tolerant, let's say.
Right.
Also, so thank you, audience. I'm getting a lot of hearts and a lot of thumbs up. I love that. I'm really hoping that you're able to get something out of this. I don't know if our Zoom audience has anything coming through. You can put it in the chat. Tasha, go ahead.
So, um, it really resonated with me, what everyone said. Like what Leanne said, finding your own people is important. I know when experiencing being looked down on or discrimination in the workplace, being, you know, passed over, just experiencing those things, I felt depressed. I felt, but it kind of encouraged me to start fighting, to learn my rights as a worker, to learn um, just how to fight for those things in a professional way and just learning how to defend myself. So I really started, just studying ways to protect myself and to find people who um, are supportive in the workplace. And then like Megan said, sometimes as far as leaving that toxic environment, sometimes knowing when to be done is the best decision. And just knowing your self-worth, knowing when enough is enough. So that's what my experience, how it impacted me.
This is Deanna. Wow. I completely agree with what Tasha just said. Making sure that we find our tribe where we'll have no problems showing our true selves. Because we don't, well, let me say this. We not all of us are emotional, has our emotional toolkit in place, that heart-to-heart talk where we can say, I don't feel right, or I feel this, that, and the other. And we need to make sure that we have friends who can roll up their sleeves and say, you know what? I'm here for you, girl. I can listen, as opposed to, ooh, I don't know what to do with that. So, because what that does is layers the trauma one on top of the other. So, I think it's important for us to identify, okay, maybe not every one of my friends would be the best qualified to be for me in that place. You kind of funny. Okay, you a little bit on the mushy side, but you good. You got my back. I know that when stuff start going cray, you gonna be
Mm-hmm.
there. You gotta identify who
Say
is
that.
who, and make that match. And then I know I'm finna call, you not. I am lucky to have one of those in every category, but in reality, that's what we have to deal with. You need to keep your circles small. You need to make sure that you can have that peace after work and not go through life alone. Where you just like, I'm fine, I'm a survivor. Nobody can bother me. I just keep yeah. How long are you finna do that? How long are you gonna stay in survival mode? You will burn out. There is no one to hold you up. So you have to know when you remind yourselves you are worthy. The workplace is a part of us. Make sure that you are in your right tribe. That's it. Audience, I hope you are finding your tribe, someone who's got your back, someone who's there to make your life a little bit more bearable. Any more comments? All right. Right. All right. Let's go on to our next question. So, how can organizations actively address and prevent these passovers? How can they foster a more equitable, inclusive workplace culture? What do y'all think? Leanne.
Okay, this is Leanne. That's an interesting question, really, because it really starts at the top, you know, and oftentimes it's the top, and that's who's responsible for setting the tone and setting the standards in that organization. So to improve the organization, And to have that shift, it really starts with educating the people at the top primarily and first. And then their behaviors will impact everyone else throughout the organization. And it will become more integrated in different ways and different approaches as well. And so when it comes from a sincere place, from the heart, being open minded, and having the willingness to embrace those conversations, those critical conversations, then it will be successful and effective. And if not, then it won't. And then you can just definitely say that later on, it just wouldn't work and it will impact everyone. So, yeah.
This is Deanna. We've got about 20 minutes for this amazing conversation. Who wants to go next? Sayla? What Leanne said, this is Sayla. What Leanne said, I completely agree. It's really important that you have that, when you have people that are sitting down, people of color, people who are deaf, they're willing to listen, really understand what the social structure is, to set the tone for that, what the oppression looks like, what being passed over looks like, all of those things, what you would do, what policy changes are necessary. All of that is included with behavior. And you have to. I remember the first time I went to work, I had to socialize with what other things influence people, influence policies, influence all of those things. I had to come into the understanding that that was necessary. So, working with my therapist team, different patients and things like that, we are all in this environment where we have to kind of vibe off each other and know that even though presentations that may be brief, there's an understanding that comes from that. And there's an improvement that happens from that when you name it, moving on to the next one. And then even when we had to do our reports, things were slow. And I know for me, there was an officer we had there that we decided that the policy was that we were going to distribute it for the deaf and take turns on that and, kind of vibe, understand how we're going to do and do some screenings, things like that, set it up. And that became a part of the behavior. And it works it does it in the workplace as well. This is Deanna. It's unfortunate that it has to be done that way. Like Leanne said, it really starts with the top, right? Those of us under the who are in the trenches, very often they don't listen to what we're saying. So we always feel as if we want them to lead by example, but at the top, they're not the ones doing the work themselves to really be able to move the move it effectively, you know, because they're not doing the internal work that we're doing, how to treat people differently. I mean, even that with forcing them to do that type of work, it's like practice what you preach, plain and simple. Do what you say, what you mean what you say. So that's the way I see it anyway. Tasha.
My viewpoint is that nothing will change until the entire system changes.
Mm,
Right now, one of the hard things that I had to accept is that this system is not designed to benefit me or people who look like me. And I know that's sad, but really, the person at the top, we can educate them, teach them until we like can't breathe anymore. Like we could until we die. If they don't care because they want to continue to receive the benefit from this system, it's going to keep going. And I don't know if that means finding ways to create our own jobs or create our own spaces or create our own opportunities. Because really, many of these places, they are benefiting from our hard work and from our glass ceiling. They're benefiting from that. So they don't want to change it. It's not that they don't know, it's that they don't want to. And I think many of this will have to come from, making those small changes, creating our own opportunities, and just working to really shut down that system and create a new one that focuses on people's skills and their value for what they bring to the workplace and not what we look like or our gender or our, the color of our skin or any of that. So that's just my opinion on that.
This is Deanna. Taj, that was fact, honey. The system is too rooted in a lot of us fighting over and over again. And it's not our job. It's up to the white people who created the system to fight that system. And they're not doing it. They are not doing it. All they want to say is, oh, them angry black and brown people. But when white people show their support to us, then I'm like, okay, hey, you know what? I know the system ain't for us, and we need equality for all of us. Make sure you are in a workplace that is safe for everybody, not just for this group, that group, and this group, and the other group is like, oh, maybe you need to shut up, you
Yep.
to the side. No, what? We can't all be living that way in survival mode. So the other way that we move it further, how do we do that? Even in the competition that we live with, the rat race, is we have the same education and yet you get passed over for a white person with the same credentials. So if you can imagine a company, what would that say to all of you? That you work full time, but still have to make sure that I have my own business. I can't continue working for the system forever. Come on now. I've got to find my own way and decide how I can run my own business where nobody can tell me what to do with my business. So make sure, we've got that example where they have done that. They work and work and work, and you working for other people, but ain't nothing changing for you. So make sure you have something that's your own, something that you can be proud of, that you can say, this is mine, and leave that generational wealth through the hard work that you have done. It's kind of like, I don't want it to feel like if we owe the white people to help us. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not reality either. You know what I mean? So for me, I go another way. Meg, you wanted to add something.
Yes, I also want to honor the time here later on as well. I mean, that we have left as well. So I do want to say that yes, it's at the top, but also like it happens at the top, but it's not the starting point for everyone. And what that means is that some of us may join an organization, agency, or company. And for example, my parents, when I was growing up, would have conversations with me about appropriate work ethics and how to talk in a certain way and what the expectations were in the status quo. And, but a lot of parents don't give that talk to people, especially people from impoverished backgrounds and other type of backgrounds as well. And so people are judged based on their starting point, and it's not a fair starting point for everyone. It's not the same. And so for that means that when someone joins or is hired at a new job or company or agency, of course, it's life or whatnot, but still you ask, are you supported at the workplace when you're hired? What does that onboarding process look like? Are you being checked in on? Are they making sure they're at space for feedback and support so that you can be promoted? And developing that type of dynamic moving forward wherever you're hired. And so again, a lot of times people are just marginalized or relegated to the sidelines, and that they just are hired on and then they're on their own without any support, and that's not equitable for everybody. And that's the starting point. So that's what I wanted to say, is that the starting point for everyone is different when they're coming into the workplace. And so we have to make sure that people are sharing tools and resources when it comes to that and entering the workplace.
This is Deanna. Perfect. We've got about 11 minutes left, but that was beautiful. That was perfect. Meg, you segued right into our next question. So, the next question being, how does Passover intersect with diversity, equity, and inclusion issues? what does it look like? What steps can companies take to ensure fair opportunities for all employees? This is Selah. I think of it like a bowl of soup. You know, there's different ingredients in each, different flavors that you kind of put in. Does everybody make the same soup the same? Absolutely not. So I envision how do we do equity? How do we do inclusion? One or two examples would be like, let's say I have, um, I'm setting up for two parents, well, with two kids, right? And there's might be no changes for now, but the families are different. One has a mom and a dad. One might have a different family structure. So I can't do one size fit all, right? There has to be some adjustments that are made depending on even the age of the children. And then another one is that I have like 3 days of grief with someone who has passed away. So 3 days might be one way for one person and different for another. Another one may be from the continent of Africa, where when someone passes on, they fly home. So now that includes a different amount of cost that's involved, and grief has its own process. So all of that is a part of it. Even when we're talking about those who live in the continent of Africa, what the burial looks like, having to fly back over. So if you're talking about 3 day um, uh, leave, that's not nearly enough for someone that has to fly so far. This is Deanna. That's a good suggestion. Yeah. Leanna, you raised your hand.
Yes, I think that's a perfect point too, because thinking about directors of diversity and really thinking about the pathway for people and even succession plans and even for younger people and how they look up to us and the other generations to break through those glass ceilings and open those doors for them so that they have a place and they don't have to go through the same things we went through. And so it's just like, how good are we at that? And what kind of example are we setting for them? And are they going to just sit back and allow these things to happen? No, they're going to be assertive and doing the work and making sure that's happening. And it's almost to the point where we don't want anyone to break in that process. But at the same time, there are certain limitations. And so even passing that down too. So it's just kind of like, how do we make sure to be diverse and inclusive and making sure that we are working together and collaborating on those strategies?
This is Deanna. Good point. Making sure that they have good role models to work with us. Yeah. Last two before we wrap up.
I think they really said it, they explained it really well. I think that just focusing on equity, um, and just matching the needs of the people who are working there, focusing on skill as opposed to other things, um, and just continuing to support each other in the workplace, supporting the needs of the people who work there, and just being willing to focus on what's needed to make the workplace run smoothly. And I think if that's the focus, if we're truly leading in a way that's going to get the job done correctly, just making sure that we're focusing on what's important in that skill, and that's how our differences can come together to make a smooth work environment. So that.
This is Deanna. Thank you, Tasha. I completely agree with that concept. Last but not least, Meg.
Well, I really appreciate what you said, Taja, and focusing so much on what's right, but really what's important is, not being like stuck on the good or bad, the right or the wrong, that binary too, but really like where are we willing to go in whatever area that is. And that is really where the change is happening. And it's a hard conversation to have. We have to be very vulnerable and we will make mistakes in that process. And, you know, it won't always be a perfect journey, but we have to be willing to look at that spot, that place, and, you know, see where that is. And it's important that we have that shared goal so that we can transform in whatever area that is. And we have to be part of that, has to be part of the company's goal and have that place, so that we can open up and give feedback, receive feedback, and be able to be transformative and open in that process so that can happen, whatever the decision is, and being involved in that process. And many people usually don't want to, they don't want to be wrong, you know, and they just think it's best to say nothing. And that cycle, that status quo just continues. And so again, it, you know, we have got to dismantle what's there in order to make better spaces for all.
This is Deanna. I want to thank every one of our panelists for expressing so much the duality of trauma, um, the beautiful and ugly is what I call it, the beauty. Um, I
Perfectly
made it
said.
up, okay? So don't be looking it up in the dictionary.
Amen.
Made up the word, all right? So I just want to honor the trauma. Thank you, Tater. I just want to honor the trauma, how to create the beautiful out of the trauma, to show people that you are a survivor through that trauma and you have the right to want to work in a place where we can call home and that we can feel comfortable to not only invite people in, but tell people that this is a fabulous place to be, a place that you should feel like home. So, I mean, I know you have your regular home, but you should be able to feel safe where you work in both places. It shouldn't be limited just to your actual physical home. You shouldn't be coming home from work feeling drained and worn out and destroyed. You need a tribe in both places. So there needs to be a tribe um, that can uh, that can survive all of that we want to do. Survive even what we're thinking, how people are feeling, what people are saying. Regardless, the point is if anyone in the audience is thinking, you know what, I really relate to what was being said. What I need you to do is face those people, you know, have them acknowledge what they're doing to cause you harm so that it can be inclusive for all. Because chances are you're not the only one, okay? Because when you speak up, it's most likely someone's going to come behind and say, oh, finally, someone said something. So for those in the audience, I thank you for watching. Thank you for all your hearts. Thanks for all your thumbs up. Thank you for supporting us, those on Zoom. Season 2 is here we go. Season 1 was a wrap. Thank you so much for everything again, panelists. Thank you for investing your time with us. Interpreters, thank you so much. Captioner, thank you so much. The accessibility was off the chain. Thanks and have a great night.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.